Get out here now. This is the HOA. The pounding was so loud it rattled the glass. I didn't even have time to reach the door before it shattered inward. Splinters rained down like shrapnel, and all I could do was back away, heart racing, as figures in windbreakers stormed inside. This is private property. I screamed, but it didn't matter. Marsha Dane, with her silver bob and blood-red lips, pointed a wrinkled finger at me like a judge sentencing someone to death. You're under citizen's arrest for harboring an unauthorized guest. I should have been scared, but I wasn't, because she was standing in the hallway. My guest, calm, silent, observing. They didn't know who she was, but they would. I didn't buy this cabin to fight battles. I bought it to forget the world. After I lost my brother in Afghanistan, and the company I poured my soul into collapsed, I didn't want anyone around. I didn't want to explain. I didn't want sympathy. I wanted silence. And the cedar cabin in the woods promised just that. No internet, no visitors, no drama. Until I found out there was an HOA. I didn't know you could even have one out here. But somehow the Lakeside Historic Preservation Board had morphed into an HOA under some obscure county merger. And guess who ran it? Marsha Dane. The same woman now calling me a criminal in my own living room. It started small. A letter. Dear resident, please be advised that overnight guests require pre-approval from the Lakeside HOA. Regulations are attached. I tossed it in the trash. Then came the fines. $75 for lawn neglect. $500 for improper exterior modifications. And finally, one that chilled me. $850 for an authorized overnight stay by non-family guest. In red ink, underlined twice, someone had scribbled, "We know about your guest." But here's the thing. No one had visited me. Not until 2 weeks ago. That's when I met her. Scout, my golden retriever, had slipped his leash and bolted into the trees one afternoon. I chased after him for nearly an hour, calling his name until my throat burned. I finally found him sitting at the edge of a clearing, tail wagging, beside a woman in camo fatigues, crouched beside a small fire. She looked up like she already knew who I was. "You live in the cedar cabin?" "Yeah," I said, catching my breath. She didn't smile, but she nodded. "I need to stay off-grid for a while. I won't be a burden. Just need a place. You won't be in danger." I should have said no, but something in her voice, calm, focused, felt familiar, felt safe. So I said, "Okay." And that decision changed everything. Now she was stepping forward, slow and deliberate, into my ruined living room, facing down Marsha and her self-righteous army. "Do you want to see my badge?" she asked. Marsha looked stunned. "What?" The woman reached into her coat pocket, slow, deliberate, and pulled out a black leather case. Flipped it open. Special Agent Myra Alvarez. Department of Justice. Step away from the homeowner. Silence. You could have heard the frost melt off the windows. Mr. Klaus, one of the HOA board members, stammered, "We didn't know." "You thought you had authority. You don't. You just broke federal laws, and you're trespassing." The fake authority drained from their faces like ink in water. That night, after they left, Myra and I sat at the old kitchen table. No lights. Just the glow of the fireplace and her voice, steady, low. "I didn't just randomly come here," she said. "What do you mean?" "I've been tracking real estate corruption for 2 years. This HOA is part of a laundering ring. They seize homes through fake violations, flip ownership, and funnel the sales." I blinked. "That's insane." She nodded. "Insane and real. The people they target? Isolated, elderly, emotionally broken. People no one checks on." My stomach turned. Like my neighbor, the Andersons. They just disappeared. "They didn't disappear," she said. "They were forced out." She opened her laptop and showed me a document, fake citations, backdated violations, forged city records. HOA board members in direct contact with a shady property developer across the county. "You're on their list," she said. "That's why they're escalating." I remembered the letter on my door from a week ago. Last warning: comply or be removed. I thought it was just HOA theatrics, but it was more than that. I didn't tell Myra then, but that night I sat in the dark and cried, because I remembered the last time I lost a home. My mother had Alzheimer's, and I spent 2 years fighting to keep her house. The bank called it delinquent. I called it hers. We had nothing left but that roof. Then, one cold February morning, they came with a moving truck and a court order. She didn't even know where she was. Just clung to my hand like a child. I never forgave the system for that. Now, it was happening again. Only this time, I wasn't alone. 2 days later, just when things had started to calm, Myra woke me up at 2 a.m. "They're coming," she said. I looked out the window. Flashlights. Figures in coats. "They brought the sheriff," I whispered. But Myra wasn't afraid. She grabbed a flash drive, slid it into my hand. "Don't say anything. Let them talk." We went outside together. The sheriff was young and clearly uncomfortable. There's been a complaint filed. They say you're housing stolen government property." "What property?" I asked. He didn't answer. He looked at Myra. "I'll speak with your commanding officer," she said calmly. More silence. He stepped aside, barely making eye contact. "Please come with us for questioning." I took a deep breath, heart pounding. "Am I being arrested?" He hesitated. "Just come peacefully." As they led me away, I saw Myra nod. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. I had no idea what she was about to do. But I knew one thing. They were going to regret ever kicking down my door. They tried to strip my peace. Tried to humiliate me. But I wasn't that broken woman anymore. And Myra? She was about to make them pay for every single inch they stole from the people they thought were too small to fight back. If you think you know where this story ends, you don't. Because the next moment, it changes everything. Don't go anywhere. Subscribe. Hit the bell. Watch until the very end. Because when the truth comes out, someone's going to prison. They took me into the sheriff's office like I was some kind of criminal. I wasn't cuffed, not yet, but everyone looked at me like I was already guilty. I could feel the heat of their judgment burning into my back. The receptionist didn't even meet my eyes when she handed me the intake form. And all I could think about was that flash drive Myra slipped into my hand before they walked me out. I didn't even know what was on it. But something told me, this wasn't just her plan. This was a trap. And the bait was me. I hadn't slept. I hadn't eaten. They put me in a freezing room with 2 chairs and a camera mounted in the corner. It wasn't long before he walked in. Detective Ron DeLuca. Greasy hair, thick mustache. The kind of man who loved holding power over people like a noose. He didn't introduce himself. Just tossed a folder onto the table like it was the final nail in a coffin. "You've been busy," he said, pulling out a chair. I stayed quiet. He opened the folder. Photos. Citations. Screenshots. Then one that caught my eye. A close-up of me on my own porch, handing something to Myra. "You want to tell me what this is?" "She's a federal agent," I said. DeLuca chuckled. "Is she? Then why isn't she here?" I swallowed hard. That was a good question. But then I realized, this was part of it. Myra had warned me. They'll make it look like I vanished. Like I was never here. If they couldn't erase her, they'd erase her credibility. And that meant I was alone now. But not unarmed. I reached into my coat and slid the flash drive across the table. "What's that?" he asked. "Truth," I said. "You want it or not?" His eyes narrowed. He took it, but not before giving me a look like he'd just realized I wasn't going to fold the way the others had. They left me in that room for 6 more hours. By the time I was released, the sky outside had turned to slate and ice. Cold. Sharp. And Myra was gone. No note. No message. Just silence. The drive home felt like the longest ride of my life. The cabin stood still, untouched, at least for now. But every time I walked past a window, I felt eyes on me. The woods were quiet. Too quiet. Scout didn't even bark that night. I made tea, sat by the fire, and opened my laptop. The folder Myra had left me, hidden in plain sight under the label receipts, was filled with files. Bank statements, property transfer records, phone logs, emails from Marsha Dane to a real estate firm called West Point Development, offering highly distressed but potentially valuable property in our community. That's when I found it. My name, listed under a column labeled Next Targets. Beside it, an estimated potential resale value. They had priced my life down to the dollar. I closed the laptop, hands shaking. They weren't just trying to ruin me. They were trying to profit from it. And then I remembered something Myra had said that I'd brushed off at the time. If anything happens to me, don't look for me. Look for her. I hadn't asked who she meant, but I had a hunch. And it started with a name I hadn't spoken in years. Celia Monroe. She and Myra had served together. I remembered seeing the name in one of the old photos Myra left on the mantel. A young, fierce-looking black woman with a crooked smile and a scar that ran from her chin to her ear. I opened the laptop again, hands trembling. It took me hours, but I found her, living 3 counties over, working as a trauma therapist for veterans. I sent her an email. I didn't know what to write, so I kept it short. She's gone, and they're coming for me next. I didn't expect a reply, but the next morning, someone knocked on my cabin door. It was her. No introduction. No questions. She walked in, sat down, and said, "Tell me everything." So I did. And when I was done, Celia stared into the fire for a long moment, then said something that made my stomach drop. "She's not missing. She's undercover." What? She did this once before, Celia said. Buried herself in a community so deep, the people forgot who she was, until she burned them all down from the inside. And then she told me the story. There was a retirement village in Nevada. Peaceful, quiet, until the local association started issuing strange rules. Evictions, asset seizures, elderly veterans kicked to the curb, one by one. Myra had posed as one of them. By the time she was done, 3 HOA board members were behind bars, and a state senator had resigned. She worked alone, always, but Celia leaned in close, voice low. "She brought you in. That's new." I didn't know what to say, because the truth was, I didn't want to be part of this. I just wanted to be left alone. But it was too late for that now. Celia stayed the night. We went over the files Myra had collected. It was a map of corruption, names, dates, contracts, everything. And then Celia pointed at something I hadn't noticed before. A memo, signed by the county commissioner, authorizing emergency land use seizure of my property, effective in 5 days. "That's how they do it," she said. "They push you to violate enough codes, then have someone at the top declare the land unsafe. Once it's seized, it's gone." My hands curled into fists. No, not again. That night, I didn't sleep. I watched the woods. I listened to the walls breathe. I could feel the house mourning. They were going to steal my peace. Again. Unless we stopped them. But even Celia looked unsure. "We need her," she whispered. "Without Myra, it's just words. Documents. They'll deny everything." And then, the phone rang. Blocked number. I answered. "I told you not to look for me," Myra's voice said. I exhaled, tears springing to my eyes. "Where are you?" "I'm close. But you need to hold the line. Don't leave the cabin. Don't let them win." "Myra." She hung up. No goodbye. Just that voice, like armor. The next day, the HOA returned. This time, with a clipboard and a man in a suit. "Ms. Bowen," the man said, "we're here to serve notice of imminent property reclamation per Local Code 67B. Celia stepped out beside me. "And I'm here to inform you that you're violating 6 federal statutes, including fraud." Marsha laughed. You brought friends? That won't help you. I stared at her, the fire building behind my ribs. You think this is about me? Marsha blinked. I stepped forward. This is about everyone you hurt. Everyone you stole from. I've got your letters. Your emails. Your developer deals. Every single crime on file. Marsha's smirk faded. I pointed to the man beside her. And you? Lawyer or just a puppet? He turned pale. Celia pulled out a folder and handed it to him. Consider this a cease and desist. Any further attempts to claim this property will be considered criminal trespass. They left without a word. But the war wasn't over. It had just begun. Because Myra was still out there. And whatever she was building, it was about to burn this whole system to the ground. They thought I was just another easy target. But I had something they didn't. A voice. The truth. And her. This story isn't over. The worst part? It's still ahead. They tried to bury us. They forgot we were seeds. If you're watching this right now, don't scroll away. Because what happens next? It'll shake everything. Subscribe. Turn on notifications. And don't you dare miss what comes next. We're just getting started. The third night after the cease and desist, a light appeared in the woods. Just one. Small. Flickering. I'd seen deer, foxes, even the occasional hiker come through this part of the land. But this wasn't that. This light wasn't moving like something alive. It was still. Waiting. I stood at the window, coffee in one hand, phone in the other. My first instinct was to call Celia, but she'd already left. Said she had to meet with someone up the chain. Promised she'd be back. So it was just me now, and the flickering glow in the trees. I turned off every light in the cabin, grabbed Scout's collar, and slipped outside, every step crunching the frozen leaves underfoot. The air smelled of pine, smoke, and something else. Gasoline. As I crept closer, I saw what it was. A torch, planted in the dirt like a warning, and tied to the torch pole with twine, a red envelope. I pulled it off, hands trembling, and opened it. Inside was a photo. An old man, face bruised, sitting on the porch of a house that looked a lot like mine, but worn with time. The words scrawled underneath in black ink. He said no, too. My knees buckled. I dropped the envelope into the dirt. Scout growled, low and uncertain. Whoever had done this, had done it before. And they weren't just threatening me now. They were reminding me. They'd won before. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at the edge of my bed with Myra's files spread across the floor, tracing every thread she'd left me. One folder stood out, labeled only K31. I opened it. Inside were transcripts. Not emails, not documents. Conversations. Recordings. Labeled with timestamps and initials. MD equals Marsha Dane. WD equals Wallace Devlin. Unknown equals? The? Was Myra. I knew that voice. The conversations were vague but damning. MD, we've got another one sitting on 4.3 acres. Middle of nowhere. No family. WD, can you manufacture code violations? MD, already in motion. Trash, paint, noise complaints. Give it a month. And if they resist? MD, then we remove them. There it was. Not just suspicion. Proof. This wasn't just corruption. This was premeditated theft. Property after property. People pushed out. Harassed. Fined. Dragged into courtrooms until they had nothing left to fight with. I flipped through another envelope Myra had marked personal. Letters. All from the same woman. Handwritten. Dear Myra, they keep coming. The man from the HOA said he'd help me fix my steps, but instead they fined me $1,200. I didn't sign anything. I'm scared. I think they're watching me from the woods. The letter stopped mid-sentence. The rest of the page blank. On the back, a short note from Myra. She died 2 weeks later. Cardiac arrest. Alone. I dropped the letter. It felt like I couldn't breathe. This wasn't about my cabin anymore. This was about everyone who came before. Myra wasn't just investigating. She was documenting a war no one wanted to believe was real. And it was still happening. I turned to the map taped to the wall. Myra's hand-drawn lines stretched between homes, developers, and key names in the HOA. Most of the names had red XS over them. One didn't. Harold Vance, former HOA vice president. According to Myra's notes, he disappeared last fall. No official record. No obituary. No property transfer. Just gone. But not to her. Because next to his name, Myra had scribbled in pencil. Hospital. Head trauma. Memory loss. Ask for Evelyn. I dug deeper. Vance had been admitted to a private care facility 30 miles out. A place for veterans and dementia patients. I drove there the next morning. The nurse at the front desk looked hesitant. He doesn't talk much anymore. I just want to sit with him. She nodded slowly. 5 minutes. The man I saw was hollowed out. Skin pale, lips dry, hands trembling slightly on his lap. But when I said Myra's name, his eyes snapped into focus. And he whispered, Evelyn. Evelyn, they set the fire. What fire? He stared at the wall. They said it was rats in the attic. But I saw the cans. I saw them pour it. Who? I asked. But he was already slipping again. The nurse ushered me out gently. Later that evening, I stopped at a gas station on the way back. While waiting for my coffee, a man in a faded work jacket came up beside me and said something I'll never forget. You're the one from the cabin. The one they marked. I froze. Who are you? I used to mow lawns for half the board. Before they got rid of Mr. Vance. Before the fire. His eyes were sunken, like he hadn't slept in days. You think they'll stop at you? He whispered. They won't. They want the whole lake. He handed me a folded scrap of paper and walked out without another word. When I opened it in the car, I found coordinates and a name I hadn't seen before. Julian Ketter, another former board member. And next to it, in Myra's handwriting, whistleblower, hiding. I didn't know what I was chasing anymore. Justice? Revenge? Survival? But it didn't matter, because I wasn't stopping. When I got back to the cabin, I found something taped to my door. Another photo. This time, it was me, sitting on my porch, laptop open, coffee in hand. Taken from the woods. On the back, we see everything. That night, I boarded every window, locked every door, sat with a shotgun on my lap and my back to the wall. But the scariest part wasn't that they were watching. It was that they had been, the whole time. They hadn't just chosen me. They'd been building this trap for years. And now, I was starting to realize, Myra wasn't just trying to expose them. She was trying to destroy them from within. And to do that, she needed someone on the outside willing to burn everything down, even if it meant going alone. The storm came 3 days after the last warning. Wind howled through the trees like wolves circling something wounded. The lake looked like broken glass under the sky, and the snow fell sideways, sharp as needles. Every power line crackled. The lights flickered twice, then surrendered. I sat in silence. No heat, no phone, no backup. Scout lay curled by my feet, ears twitching with every creak of the roof. They wanted me cold, alone, isolated, but I was done running. I pulled the last folder Myra had marked for when it breaks from the floorboard under my bed. It was sealed with a strip of blue duct tape and a single note on top. If you've reached this, the system has collapsed. Use everything. Inside were 4 names, bank accounts, hidden contracts, secret land deeds. One of them was mine, already processed, already forged. My name replaced by a trust, the address renamed as Undeveloped Zone. They had already sold my home. The deal was scheduled to finalize in 48 hours. And the buyer? West Point Development. The same name Myra had circled again and again, with one word written beside it. Extinction. I drove through the storm that night. No headlights. No music. Just the sound of wind and tires over ice. The coordinates from the scrap of paper the lawn guy gave me led me down an unmarked forest trail, barely wide enough for a single vehicle. At the end of it, a camper, hidden beneath a green torp, tucked into the shadow of an old hill. I knocked once, then again, then a voice from inside. "Who told you?" I answered with one word. "Myra." The door opened. Julian Ketter looked nothing like his old HOA photos. He had a thick beard, bloodshot eyes, and tremors in his left hand. The kind of man who had run too far for too long. He let me in without another word. The inside of the camper was covered in newspaper clippings and files. Every wall, every cupboard, filled with receipts, photographs, aerial maps of Lakeside, and a large photo of Myra in uniform. "She said you might come," he finally said, pouring a cup of instant coffee. I didn't believe her. "I need to stop the sale," I told him. He shook his head. "You're not stopping a sale. You're trying to derail a machine. That development firm? They're just the front. The people behind them are tied to 3 county commissioners, a judge, and a private investment group out of New York. Then we burn it down," I said. Julian raised an eyebrow. "You think this ends with a lawsuit? They'll erase you. Then we make sure we scream before they do." That night, we printed everything. Myra's documents, Julian's files, the photos, the property maps, the audio transcripts. Julian had hacked into HOA emails years ago, stored them on a backup drive he never dared send. Until now. The next morning, I stood outside the county courthouse with a thick manila envelope clutched in my arms. Drenched from the snow, heart pounding so loud I could barely hear the wind. And beside me, she stepped out of a car like she'd never left. Myra. Hair pulled back. Badge on her belt. Eyes like stone. "You came back." I never left. We walked in together. The courtroom was already filling. The HOA board had called an emergency hearing, hoping to fast-track the evacuation order due to structural hazards and non-compliance. Marcia sat at the front, smiling like a woman who had already won. The judge barely glanced at me when I approached. But then Myra stood, and her voice carried like thunder. "Your Honor, I am here on behalf of the United States Department of Justice. This board is under investigation for racketeering, mail fraud, real estate laundering, and conspiracy to commit elder abuse." Every neck in the room snapped toward her. Marcia stood up. "She's a fake. She's not." Myra pulled out a folder. Affidavits. Signed by whistleblowers. Tracked bank accounts. Altered deeds. Evidence collected over 14 months. The judge took the documents. The room fell into silence. Julian stepped forward next. "I was vice president of this HOA. I resigned when I found out what they were doing. I was threatened, attacked, left for dead." He handed over the backup drive. For the next 30 minutes, the courtroom listened as names were read. Deeds were displayed. Emails replayed. And then, Myra played a video. A hidden camera from inside Marcia's house. She was sitting at a table with Wallace Devlin, the real estate broker. Her voice clear, sharp. "Once she's out, we close escrow in 48 hours. I've already moved the money. Just make sure the judge signs off." No one spoke. Not even the judge. Then finally, the gavel dropped. "This court is placing a temporary freeze on all actions by the Lakeside HOA, effective immediately. A full investigation will follow." Marcia didn't scream. She didn't speak. She just sat there, still, like her mind had left before her body did. Outside the courthouse, Julian lit a cigarette with shaking hands. "She'll go to jail, won't she?" Myra nodded. "So will a few others. But not all of them. Some are still protected." I asked her, "So what now?" She looked up at the sky. Snow falling onto her lashes. "We build. We protect. We watch." I still live in the cabin. The windows are no longer boarded. The porch is fixed. The fake citations have stopped. But the scars remain. Some nights I hear Scout growl at nothing, and I wonder if they're still out there, the ones who didn't get caught. Watching, waiting, but I'm not afraid anymore. Because now, they know I'm not alone. I still talk to Myra, every now and then. Never about the past, only the present. She's moved on, another town, another mission. Same fire. Celia came back, too. Brought a team of investigators to Lakeside. They've started helping the other victims, the ones who never spoke out, the ones who were too scared. They have names now. Files. Voice. Julian bought a plot of land by the water. He's rebuilding a small cabin. Said he wants peace, not revenge. I understand that now. Justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a quiet fire, burning everything false until only the truth remains. They tried to erase me, break me, own me, but instead, they gave me something I never thought I'd find again. A reason to fight, a place to stand, and people who won't disappear when the lights go out. This wasn't just about a cabin. It was about what we all deserve. A home, a voice, and the right to live without fear of the people who are supposed to protect us. The storm passed. The woods are quiet again. But I'll never forget what it taught me. Even the strongest door can break. But if you're not the one who falls when it happens, you're the one they'll never forget.